beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a non-sunny day in the neighborhood. Turn down my phone here. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Power to the People show. You know, I wish my days I didn't have to always run from one thing to the other. Cause then, okay, I would already have it. Hi everybody, good to. Are we glitching? I celebrate Dr. King today. Matter of fact, I saw, got a little bit of, my mind is all over the place. GYC's radio show last night, Newkirk, and he was talking about the King holiday. So I really did appreciate that. And we're not glitching anymore, right?
No, we should be good.
And I was watching him. He said, "Bishop, what you doing up this late?" It was only like 9:30. I don't know what time you think I go to bed. I think his show comes on at like 9. And so I decided, let's do some things with King and talk about that. First of all, let me just say right off the top, the MLK Jr. celebration is going to take place on Sunday, 6 p.m., and it is going to be featuring, let's see, the Larry Salters Band, Kamira Lattimore, somebody Kennedy. Is that Senator Kennedy's daughter? I know one time she did
Yes,
something.
that is Aaron Kennedy.
The African Cultural Center Dancers, the Buffalo Bell Ringers, True Bethel's Praise Dance Ministry, Delivered, Buffalo Performing Arts, Mo Badger, and many more. Keynote speaker is Mr. Nathan Hare. And then there's a whole lot of sponsors that are listed. So, so put that on your calendar for 6 p.m. on Sunday at Kleinhans Music Hall. And of course, the chairperson, the director, Bessie Patterson, produced and directed, it says on the bottom, by Bessie Patterson. So we want to get together. So not a lot happened this week besides finding boxes of documents in Biden's, and I think we're still glitching. Is there a reason for that?
I'm closing out other stuff now. But
Oh, okay. Finding documents in Biden's garage. He said that they were parked by his Corvette. Well, one of them, that was the second one that they found, and first one that they found, it was in an office that he had after he left the vice presidency. People are comparing that to the former President Trump and saying, you know, the government didn't come in and find Biden's. They turned it in when they found it. Other people are like, they'd have never found that. That would have been in the shredder. But they did turn it in, which was the right thing to do. And so that was important. They found the second one. What I told Monique is we're still glitching. Is it the same problem we were having the other week?
yeah, but I'm connected hardwired today.
And everything else?
Yeah.
Is that Corvette that he has, he'll never be able to drive again.
No.
Presidents cannot drive after they have become president. They can never again drive a vehicle. It's one of the facts. They can never drive another vehicle. Now, Reagan used to drive after he wasn't president, and he would drive his truck on his compound, but he couldn't drive it out to the street. and Obama talks about one time he was driving. I don't know if it's a friend of his or whatever brought a car onto the White House grounds, and he got behind the wheel, and Secret Service flipped out, and that's for the protection of the president. So once you are president of the United States, you no longer can drive like out in public, not even with Secret Service with you. You just can't drive. So yeah, I think that was kind of like the big news this week. And then other than that, our little snow today, which was absolutely nothing compared to what we have been through. But I had a few of the quotes of Dr. King that were printed. I want to kind of stay there. And one of the first quotes that I had printed for me today was Dr. King says, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." And
that's a good one.
yeah, I think that when we reflect back on Dr. King and the time and the era, I wonder, I mean, we still have things of injustice today, but if you've ever researched Dr. King, we celebrate him now. A lot of people don't realize that when Dr. King was standing up for civil rights against injustices, that there were large groups of people that even looked like him that were against him. And to the point that even when he's writing his letter in jail, one of his concerns through the research I found is those the other clergy who were like, "You're too radical, you're too this, and I think back to when we started the first anti-violence group here, Concerned Citizens Against Violence. And I've looked back at how long I've kind of been doing this work, and I remember my then pastor. I remember going to him, and it was a blessing now in disguise. I asked if we could. It was Rashid, now Councilmember Wyatt, Janice, now Janice McKinnon, black female builder, contractor, whatever, real estate agent, who decided we wanted to put together something against violence, because we're starting to have murders in our community. We're going back up. And I remember going to my pastor, and my pastor saying to me, I said, "Can we use the church to have a meeting?" And he said to me, not here. He said, we don't want anybody coming up trying to do anything to the church. And I said, "Yeah, but it's a meeting about peace." And he said, no. So there was a fear then, and my pastor was older, so he had lived through the civil rights movement. But what he said to me was, "Go down. I want you to go to the CAO." And I think I've told this story before on air, but he says, "Go down to the CAO and ask them, can you use space?" And I went in, and I heard this booming voice, this deep voice on the phone in the back office. And then matter of fact, no, I went to Mozella Richardson first, who was at the CAO on William. And she said, "Oh, Lord, I got to take you down to meet Florence Boss. You're going to be so happy." And I said, "Why?" She said, "We've been praying somebody would stand up and that they would do something about this. We've been just praying about it." So we go down to CAO on Harvard, where it was at that time, and I hear Miss Ball. I didn't know her. I heard her on the radio. She used to be on the radio a lot. And they bring me into the office, and Miss Ball is, she is so excited. She's so, and she says, we going to give you the room. We're going to give you the space. And they did. Mozella Richardson, who's passed on, they gave me a space in the CAO that we were able to meet. And we had put up a sign, Concerned Citizens Against Violence. And when I ran for Ellicott the first time, that sign was still up.
Wow.
And my opponent called down to the Board of Elections because it said exertions against violence, and I think it was like Darius Prison Organizer, something that had my name. So they called down to the Board of Elections to say that they were breaking election law. And the Board of Elections did investigate it, and Mozella and them did not take it down. Like, they didn't get scared because they were fighters. The Florence Ball is still alive. They were fighters. So when this investigation or whatever was going on, they were like, we ain't taking down nothing. Because I was like, why don't you just take it down? They're like, no, this ain't got nothing to do with politics. This is history. Will you put this up here? We were in our late 20s, maybe, middle 20s, mid-20s. They're like, no, nope. And of course, they did not have to take it down. And they painted that room.
Wow.
And left it up.
Wow.
They painted the room is on William across from the William Emsley Y. They painted the room and left. I'm sure it's down now. But the point is, we had made that sign off of a dot matrix printer. And so, it's long. Zip, 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 zip. And we had our first meeting, and it was packed. I mean, packed. And our Eve came. It was just so many elected officials who came who supported us. And our first church service and walk through the streets was at Friendship Baptist Church.
Okay.
And AC Ware cussed me out that day. I forgot why. It was like, I think they thought it was going to be smaller than what it was or whatever. And then we ended up having to use a sanctuary. We began. And James Lewis came. Dr. Lewis came. He wasn't a chaplain then. And we asked him to pull together the clergy. We asked him to pull together the clergy, and that was his assignment. And just so many people who we saw grow out of that movement. And so that was such an important time. But I give so much credit to Mozella Richardson and to Florence Ball because they were the women who were like, listen, we getting older, we'll support. And the first check that I got actually to buy stamps was from Mozella called, or Florence Ball called Phil Rumor. He was president then of the Buffalo Teachers. She calls Phil Rumor. I didn't know him, of course, and all I knew is she said they're going to provide you money to do a mailer.
Okay.
And we did a mailer to all the groups, the pastors, and just really began. And out of that came a program in the courts to give young people. Judge Margaret Murphy. It's so funny how I can remember all these names, and if you introduce me to somebody tomorrow, I'm not going to remember their name. Margaret Murphy contacted me, and she became a part of the coalition, Stop the Violence Coalition. Concerned Citizens, not Stop the Violence, Concerned Citizens. And she became a part of Concerned Citizens, and we were actually able, young people who were going to court, she was a city court judge, she made a program that they would go in, and if it was their first time, and we had social work, it was just a whole big thing. So big ups when we talk about King, and we talk about those who are on the front line right now. People think it's easy, but you're always going to face criticism, and I want to acknowledge some of those people. Pastor Giles, and who's out there. Constantly, and you don't have to agree with everything he says. You don't have to think, but they're out there. And I remember when I was first to the council, we were doing budget, and the first time, you're doing budget, you don't really know what you're doing. You're figuring it all out. And Councilmember Locurdo said he wanted an amendment to give money to the arts. We never really gave money to the arts like he wanted to. And he got enough votes. And so I was like, wow, that's how you do that. And I'm thinking, okay, the arts is cool, but we got violence on the street. Right. We need to, and Giles and them were volunteering, basically. Pastor Giles and them were volunteering. And I remember that next year, I was like, I'm going to put an amendment for some money for the anti-violence groups. And went to Council Member Damone Smith and to Bonnie Russell. So I knew I had 3 votes. And then we went and cut a deal with the other side and said, listen, we'll vote for your art stuff, but you got to vote for this. And that was the first time I really realized, how you utilize this budget
Right.
To help people. And we got that through, and then it has been consistent since then. And of course, most people know that out of the American Rescue Act, there's been millions that have been set aside to continue that. But it's only temporary, so you got to find a way to sustain that.
Absolutely.
But it's in that type of movement and in that kind of power that, because when you look out on the corners, some of these street corners after school, I think they wear yellow because I have a yellow jacket. Matter of fact, they gave me a yellow jacket. Not a jacket. They gave me a yellow sweater. But I think it's like 3 times my size. I want to say the shoulders are down by my elbows. And I think it has my name even embroidered on it. But it's though when we talk about people who are doing, it's so easy to talk about who's not doing what.
Right.
And one of the things that I learned in the storm is how to use, and I've always known this, but I want to do more, is how to use social media and everything else for more positive things to occur. I had a chance yesterday, and I didn't even know he was the one who started the bulletin board, the community bulletin board, Buffalo, something where everybody goes on.
The Western New York Community Board.
So I talked to the person. I'm talking to him about a problem he was having.
Right.
And then he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "I never knew it was somebody from our own community."
Yeah.
I don't know his name.
Lamar.
Is Lamar? So to Lamar, thank you so much for what you do. In that board is so important to our community. A lot of people use it. Some people try to misuse it, but they monitor it for the most part, I believe. Mm-hmm. So big ups. So I want to holler out, and anybody online, you can mention anybody you'd like to, that when you think about those who are doing the positive things in our community, I want you to mention them. So Lamar, who's out there, Dwayne Ferguson. Dwayne was one of the original persons who brought Mad Dads to this area. It was a group of them, I believe. He's still doing work out in the falls and some work here. And these are the kind of unsung heroes that some of them don't get paid to do what they do. And if they do, it's all right to me. I think, people who go to the Philharmonic love the arts of the Philharmonic, but the Philharmonic get paid.
Yeah.
So I think, so some people get, they doing it because they get paid. Well, that's okay, because they got families to feed too. And they, at the end of the day, they standing on the corners watching our children at some of the schools that have escalated violence.
Yep.
So paying them, to me, is not a bad thing as long as they're doing the job, like every other job. So, I just want to shout out some people. You got some people, and I'm gonna put on my glasses and look.
Right off the bat, I think you've hit some of the high ones. Murray Holman, Stop the Violence Coalition. MVP, I know Neil Dobbins is no longer with us, but MVP is the most valuable parents.
They seem to still be going strong.
Yes.
Sometimes when the founder or the leader who starts is no longer on the scene, if the group doesn't have a great mission and great people, it can fall apart. But I just noticed something the other day and I'm not sure who's leading it right now, but I just read something where they weighed in. And so they are considered an important voice in our community. So I do want to say, especially I remember it was a dream of his, and I remember being at the fishing event for George Johnson that he sponsors, and in him talking about MVP and what he was going to do. And a lot of people talk about what they're going to do and never do anything. Yep. So I just usually take it, and I'm always supportive of anything positive. So I'm like, all right, go ahead, do your thing. Yep. And next thing you know is MVP signs up all over the city.
Here come the blue shirts.
and a real mission to get things done. When Dr. King, I think I started reading this. was murdered, I was in a Catholic high school on Long Island. They sent us home early. When I asked why, the nun said it is too dangerous. I asked why and was told I would understand when I got older. Wow, that's a different day and age. Because nowadays, when kids ask why, we want an answer. They want an answer. You can't just tell somebody that you'll know when you get older, especially now.
Because if you don't answer, they're going straight to social media and their
Oh
phones
yeah,
anyway,
and then
so
they're
you
gonna
have
find half the time the wrong information.
You have to tell them.
Yeah, they're gonna find the wrong information. There's all of these heroes out here and sheroes out here who are doing things in our community, and I think it's so incumbent upon us. Obviously, I could talk about the Sheila Browns out of this world who. Sheila not only now is an author, but obviously the owner of this station, and I believe the general manager of the station, who took a chance out there. The folks in the Heritage Corridor,
Yep.
And I'm talking about the folks who you don't see, who are helping to keep those houses open after the passing of George K. Arthur. There are people still over at that Nash House, making sure that Nash House, and you're going to see some great things coming out of that corridor. Now, what I do want them to do is to fix the lights on the archway.
Yeah.
I do. First of all, they shouldn't have went out that quick. I mean, those things are supposed to last probably a decade.
Yeah.
So we got to get those. I rode past, and I don't know if it's been fixed in the last few days, but I rode through and was disappointed to see only half of that archway lit up. But the African, all the folks over there. And then there are people that we might not know their names, like from the block clubs, who work hard on their blocks. I talked to the head of block clubs the other day. I said, I want more block clubs in Ellicott. The block club is so important when it is run correctly, because a lot of times you got one person on the street who wants something, but it doesn't mean everybody wants it. And if you have an organized group on your block, so big up to those block clubs that are out there, like Mortimer Block Club and other block clubs all over the city. But how important you are when you are stabilizing a community, when you're fighting for your community. One of the big fights I saw was, with the speed bumps.
Yeah.
And so you had streets that were not organized, and you get 3 people on the street saying, we want the speed humps. Then you put in the speed humps, and then the other folks go, we didn't want them.
Absolutely.
So, and I've said this on this show, now there's a whole new procedure, which I like better from Public Works, which is if your street asks, now you got to have a certain percentage that says yes before you even consider. But those block clubs are so important. And so to those people who have the block parties and who have the neighborhood watches and all that kind of stuff, it is so important. On that note, while I got it seemed like you did something different because we got a clear picture.
I'm going through the
good.
The external monitor.
Good. We did put in the resolution this week, and it was unanimously approved to now set up a committee that is going to be looking at housing and fair housing and prices. What do we name that committee? See, I told you I can't remember something from 10 years ago.
The resolution is called the Affordable Housing Task Force.
So I did as promised, and now they're accepting applications from people in the community who may want to be on it. We already have some volunteers and some suggestions even from the administration.
Yep.
So this is going to be working with grassroots citizens who are experiencing this extraordinary rent hike, but also with our attorneys.
Yep.
Because a lot of times people say, you ought to just do this, and you just can't do this because of either federal law or state law. Yeah. And so it's more than a notion.
I definitely think it'll be beneficial because, like you said, we're including our legal team, the city's fair housing officer, because he's on the ground, so he also has another level. And like you said, those who are on the other side, those subject matter experts.
Absolutely.
So I think, and like you said, everyone's not going to agree, but that's the benefit.
Yes.
if we make everyone unhappy, that's how we know we got great legislation.
Yeah, and I am considering doing the same thing with our as far as our snow plan. Although the snow plan, let me say this, is not written by the council and not performed by the council. I still feel that working together is better than pointing a finger, and I think that came out in our council meeting.
Yeah,
and Councilmember Rashid White.
Thank you for letting me be here. You didn't give me enough notice.
Oh,
you know, normally you call me early, and I'm
oh
like,
no, I
okay.
wasn't calling you to come
You
on.
wasn't? Oh, well, I'm on anyway. Since you were talking about some good stuff
I was calling you to update you on something.
about the heroes and stuff during that storm, but I'll stick to what you just talked about. As far as having different task force, I saw some emails today from some residents making some very, very good suggestions, and I think you said
on what
regarding the snow
yeah,
and those things, and I said opening it up and having other minds,
and that's
really
okay
help.
to do.
Yes.
Like, and I
gotta
know
be
we
our way
don't
or
want
the
to go
highway.
too far off of where the subject is, but I think that when you listen to people, and there are people out there with constructive criticisms and suggestions.
Yes.
We'll come back to that. Because I want to get a little deeper into that, because some of what the sheriff is talking about, I totally agree with, and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
But where were you at? You were
But the
talking.
heroes in that,
Yeah.
during the storm, and I would just want to shout out Leona Harper. Again, it wasn't during the storm, but these are the people, like you spoke about Murray, who stand up and don't complain. They just get out there and do it.
And do the work.
We need more people. Don't complain. Just do it. Just get involved. This is your community. I have a community breakfast coming up on the 21st. And I tell people, I can't go to everybody's house, but you can come and I'm going to listen to you.
Right,
You have
right.
an opportunity. I don't just say, oh, it's just me and you guys just listen. No, I listen to you. So those are those opportunities that you can stand up and be a part of our community and make a difference, because we just got too many critical people that don't have a suggestion, don't want to get involved. I'm too busy to come to a meeting, just like I think those people who stood up regarding the opioid treatment center. They stood up.
So let's shout them out, because right now we are just shouting out people who are doing positive in our community.
The University
and those
District
folks,
Block Club Coalition, the president is Annie Cheatham, Lois, and Miss Doris and Paula. I mean, those folks were steadfast. And also the Judges Row Block Club, Sean Fagan and her team. I mean, those are people that they didn't give up. And that's the one thing that I hope that people learn from this effort, is that you got to put forth a plan. Yeah. You got to be consistent, and you can't give up, and you can't hate on everybody.
Well, you're totally right. I mean, that working together, and then it gets all the way to the state level.
Yes.
And you had block clubs.
Yeah.
You had the local representative yourself. Then you end up with Crystal People-Stokes,
the majority leader, Senator Kennedy.
Senator Kennedy.
Yep.
And when you can get to those levels and all work together, the world shifted. Yeah. Now we'll have a whole conversation in another show on that, because I learned some other things of why they were able to do what they did because of state law that allows them not to have to go through the same things. And Crystal People-Stokes is looking into that. I read because they didn't have to go through some of the same things because it was a native project. So come on, who else? Shout out somebody else before, and then I do want to, in the last 15 minutes, talk about some of the suggestions.
I want to shout out, Rob Cornelius, again, wasn't somebody that did something during the storm, but he did do something after he recognized there was a family in need.
And again, we're not just talking about the storm. No, we're just talking about people, period.
Okay. Yeah, I give him a shout out, because he saw a need, and he just got into action. And I think we just, again, use those examples.
He did the basketball.
He did the basketball.
And
donated the money to the
he
family,
donated
Liggins
it to the Liggins family, who people are still giving to, and that was the family that lost 5 babies in a house fire. But Rob just right away went into action, and I think one of the fraternities. I don't want to say the wrong fraternity, and then everybody be mad. Like, no, it wasn't. It was the Q. But one of the fraternities also did something.
And Rayshard Russell. Rayshard Russell is a firefighter, and he said it was on his heart. They had given the family gifts before Christmas, and he said he couldn't believe it. And so the firefighters came and did a prayer vigil. And I'm telling you, I'm like, yo, y'all got to call him because y'all ain't just firefighters, because I'm telling you, that was a moving event, and it was a lot of prayer. And also, Rashika, what's Rashika's husband's name? Art and his wife came.
I mean, yeah.
Rashika prayed, and I'm like, girl, you got a calling somewhere, because she prayed for that family.
Yeah.
And again, it's those ordinary people, and as my dear friend always says, ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Yes.
To really help our community. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Dr. King, another quote, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And I think the more we learn to love one another, I was meeting with a member earlier, and we were talking about, the mandates of God, basically, to love God, to love your neighbor, and to forgive. And the more we do that, I'm not going to say once, because I think, and you said it earlier, I think sometimes we concentrate so much on the negative, we miss the positive.
Yeah.
And there are positive people out there. It's just that the negative gets, the clicks and the views and the pass and the shares, and somebody can put out something that's so beautiful. Yeah. And it's like, oh, this doesn't get a rise out of me. But I think sometimes we utilize the social media and everything else for entertainment. Yeah. And not realizing that certain things are not entertaining. It's hurtful to us as a people. And if you don't realize the importance of us as a people, you can, and Carlinda said this to me the other day. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing it. She said she was listening to people talk about other ethnicities that are expanding, growing in our area. And then when she sat down and talked to them, she said, I was like, oh, shucks, why are we mad? Yeah. Right? So I think that, and we've been talking about this for years, we have to continue to celebrate the positive. Yeah. We have to continue to support one another and utilize every area we have to boost one another. Because as I've said, I shout out all of the African American, especially these young people, open up restaurants and doing it well. Yeah, they're doing it well. Absolutely. Like you go like, oh no, I'm going over here, and because it's more than just having good food. It's about customer service also. But I want to shout out them, because it's people like that. So I love to promote. And have I gone to a restaurant and maybe not gotten the macaroni wasn't good or the greens? You daggone straight I have. Did I go on social media? No. I'm going to tell you the good stuff. All they got is red Kool-Aid that's good. I'm going to brag about the red Kool-Aid because we can go to Lenny's and you know what I mean, with the D, and you can get bad eggs and ain't nobody saying nothing. Nope. But you go to one up, nope. Yep. I think I in this season of my life, I've always tried to push out positive. I want to push out more positive than I do negative.
Yep. And I want to thank another person, Kim from Fat Cats. Leona asked her to help the family with some food, and she said, we have for 8 or 10 people. Kim said, oh no, we don't roll like that. We did about 40. And I said, but those are the people
where?
From Fat Cat. Those are the people who have a heart of gold, that it's just not about business. It's about, if I'm doing business, I want to give back. Yeah. And I think, again, that's a blessing as well. And I want to shout out somebody else. This is my aunt. I'm being a little partial, but I called her about the Liggins family as far as an account. I said, Auntie, is there any way that KeyBank can help us out? And she got on it, and the next 2 days later, they had an account. So now we had somebody that set up something, because everybody ain't on GoFundMe. They ain't trying to put their information. Right. So now you can just go to KeyBank and give money for the Liggins family, and every nickel is going to go to the Liggins family.
Absolutely. I'm going to read some of the comments. Let me see. I got to put on these are the most raggedy glasses I have, and I refuse to throw them out. So the lens is all scratched up. The gold is off of it. It was so many young people who helped during the storm. This is Carolyn Lane. And they do it daily. Business, young ladies, and men. Yeah, because there were barbershops that were opening up. Amber. Now, one of the barbers told me they were open because they got stuck in the storm. They kept cutting, and then the storm comes, and they were there, so they stayed. Amber Bowling. We must live together as brothers or perish together as fools in Dr. King's voice. Amen. Come on. That's what I'm talking about. Corrine Flip says, before I could dig my car out, someone I never met in person on Twitter offered to do food shopping for me. There are a lot of good folks in our world. Amen. Amen. Amen.
And let me shout, because I have, and this, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I have some neighbors on my street that rarely talk to me. Don't wave at me, or they just kind of act like I don't exist. It's okay. But during the storm, they had this huge mound of snow. Mm-hmm. And I went over there and helped them shovel.
Absolutely.
And they were so thankful. They said, thank you. And I said, we started talking, and so I know them now. And so there was another neighbor up the street. He had a lot of snow too. So what did they do? They came and helped me shovel him out.
Wow.
And then we get together and help somebody else.
You ain't got no snowblower?
I was getting ready to say that.
No, I do. No, but you know that huge snow. You can't.
Oh, you mean
I'm talking about during the blizzard.
Oh, you talking about where it was high, like
five snow.
Oh, yeah.
So we were out there. But again, if you show an act of kindness, it rubs off on others.
Yeah, but see, to me that is real true. You know, community. I mean, honestly, you know, you look and you see the positive that people are doing across this city. And I think it is just so important to say thank you. Those who are just blazing trails for others, Ejanet Ogden, Justice Ejanet Ogden, and others, Betty Calvo Torres, and others who are April.
Yes.
I shout out all it that they hope to for the dream to be alive. And I'm not even going to start with all the pastors because I'm going to miss one.
Yeah.
But they are terrific. But I will say this one because to me he's one of the funniest pastors. And I got to call him back about a date he called me. But he always has this deep message. And it's Shep. I don't know if you've ever seen Shep's. So Shep will kind of he almost leads you in like a comedian, and then once he's got you, there's this really deep message behind it. But he's not like out there fire and brimstoning you on social media, but he just kind of like reels you in, and before you know it, you're reeled in, and then you're like, yeah. And some of the stuff is like, you just said what I was thinking. Oftentimes, it's like you said what I was thinking.
And you know, he was when he was teaching at Stepping Stone, he was one of the favorite teachers.
Yeah. Was he really?
He was one of the favorite.
And here's another one of my favorite people, and he's on right now, Kamal. And I always say how much I've learned from Kamal. Like I still use this phrase that I got from Kamal called differently able instead of saying disabled. And he's on now, and he's always, you know, he says eliminate the negative. Wisdom from Walt Disney, working together works. And, you know, that wisdom that Kamal brings, and he's unassuming. He's not, Kamal doesn't run to be in the front, but when he speaks, it's volumes. He speaks volumes when he does speak.
Like Eva Doyle, who is
she's on here right now.
On. I gotta shout out her out because she's always giving us those nuggets of wisdom. Definitely appreciate all that she does for our community. I had a bunch of people now, and I got stuck.
I know. That's that. How old are you? 62.
Wow.
You ain't give me nothing to go in on you today.
54.
You come in under your Uggs. Eva Doyle. I mean, I ain't got nothing to say. You have not worn those other shoes since. She says, Happy New Year, Bishop. I have a new essay contest for our youth. Of course she does. Age 9 to 12. The theme of the contest is Remembering Dr. King. Students have to describe Dr. King's visit to Buffalo on November 9th, 1967, where he spoke and what issues he addressed at that time. The deadline to enter the contest is January 30th, 2023 by midnight. All completed essays must be emailed to me at, get ready everybody, and you could play it again on Facebook, eWriter52. eWriter52 at roadrunner.com. Please, people can get the rules for the contest by sending an email message to me at that address. I have done more than 100 essay contests in our community for youth and adults. Mother Eva Doyle, Queen Doyle.
Bessie Patterson.
Thank you.
The annual Martin Luther King celebration that she took over from one of my other favorite people, Mr. Bell, who is another person.
Oh, you got to give it up to
Brother
Mr.
Bell. Would come to the church when we first started out
Absolutely.
At 491, he would come regularly.
Well, he
And
would
always
come,
have a jewel.
especially when we had every time we had he said, every time I come over here, y'all raising money for a building fund. But I sure
He would
raised that
drop a
money.
check.
But I love Cliff Bell, and yeah, that was very appropriate to call her out. And then I want to say, and you don't see her out as much, Ella Robinson, when you talk about people like Bessie Patterson, Ella, who has been out here on the battlefield. Matter of fact, she just texted me. I got all these people I got to call back. Folks, I promise you, it's been such a busy week about Richard Smallwood, who's coming to Buffalo with the Philharmonic Orchestra.
Nice.
Yeah, and she's putting it together, and she wanted me to come to a meeting, I think, yesterday. But, I'm trying. I got so many meetings. But I do want to acknowledge and already start giving the kind of the pre-publicity of Richard Smallwood. And she's been working on this for a while, wanting to do it. So to get it done is and on the way. So I do want to say that.
Another trailblazer, Alnisa Banks.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Challenger. I believe that was under Mr. Eve, right? Founded under Mr. Eve.
I don't know who founded it.
But she continues to put out information in our community, and I saw that she acknowledged those heroes and sheroes on the front page of the Challenger, and thank you for doing that, because we want to give them as much credit and shout out, because again, you don't anticipate being a hero, you just do it.
And the Criterion.
And the Criterion, who I believe may have had the picture of Dr. King and Mr.
I'm
and
sure
Pastor of
Merriweather.
St.
I'm
St.
sure
John.
the Merriweather's got that photo.
Of
St. John.
Bennett Smith.
Bennett Smith. There's a picture of them and Mr. Eve.
Well,
maybe during his visit.
Well, the Criterion was actually one of my first jobs.
Was it?
So they would bring the paper to, the churches like they still do. And I don't know if they charge for them still, but they, it was a quarter or whatever. So I was the paper boy. So I would stand up in the back of St. Luke after church, and then I had my regulars, and they would always give you a little bit more. And so I made the church would split with me. So I would get half of, so I don't know, I got $3, $4, but hey, $4 on the way to the store, you spend up $4, you happy. But people would always tip me. So, I end up with like $10 every Sunday from the Criterion. So big ups to their family. And a lot of people might not realize their family was also the one that got you out of jail.
Really?
The bail bondsman, Miss Gist. Gist was the only, from what I remember, because I wasn't locked up, but she was the only black bail bondsman, the family at that time. So you went to jail, got you out of jail. So they were a little angry when the bail bondsmen were in front of city court, and they were angry because they were concerned about their business because they have a business across the street. Well, now you come out of city court, you stop at one of the vans instead of going over. So what I did is I didn't think anybody needed to be in front of city court. So I got rid of everybody out in front of city court because it was dangerous. They were fighting, people come out, now you mad because you didn't somebody. So we weren't making any money. They would just take up the meter. So we got them moved to the side and they have to pay now. But when you come out, you're not, it's just like the food trucks. You're not in front of another business and you could be mobile. So, but yeah, a lot of people don't realize it. That's how you got out of jail if you got locked up.
I was getting ready to say, because a lot of people may not say it or some people will. I'm going to give flowers to the two of you in this moment. You guys are trailblazers, community leaders. Somebody, matter of fact, asked me last night, what is something you can say you learned from your boss? And I said, there's two things, and I know I learned them because I hate both of them. And one is the kumbaya spirit. No matter what is going on, he's always saying, Mark, let's get him in the room. We can figure this out. We can make this work. That's one. And two is no matter what somebody does to you, the fact that if they call, you're still there.
Absolutely.
And those two things, to me, is what Dr. King talked about. Yeah. It's the epitome of being a great leader. And Councilmember Wiley, the same for you. Like your frontline work as a council member, bar none, I don't think any other council member can touch you in this city or in this region. So shout out to the both of you as well.
He likes meetings.
He does.
Well,
he likes meetings.
And I always give him so much credit because in our early days as advocates in the Concerned Citizens Against Violence Coalition, that's what he taught us about organizing, connecting with people. And I remember some of those people like Florence Ball.
Yeah, I talked about it. Did you hear me talking about
No,
her?
I
today?
didn't hear you talk about
I was
her.
talking about Florence
Okay.
Ball, how we started Concerned Citizens.
I will never forget that lady. Matter of fact, she spoke at my high school graduation, and she was someone that I always admired. You know, Sharon West is another person that people speak volumes about. When she was head of BMHA, she was there. She was talked to us. And so you have these great people who have shown to be great leaders, but they had a heart.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really about that's
Well,
like
and it's the same. And I do want to say, and I don't think you could have this conversation without mentioning Art Eve.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people are educated because of Art Eve.
Absolutely.
And sometimes especially in times of criticism, I think about Art Eve because he was, and I don't want to describe him he was very passionate about what he wanted to get done and accomplished a lot. And at times we might have been on a different side politically, but I always respected him. And when he left politics and, just embraced his faith, and one of the things that he's asked still hasn't been accomplished, and that was some things he asked of the clergy and of me, his pastor, and a couple others, and we probably really need to do that while he is still with us. But he did a lot. And so those young people who don't realize that some of the programs in SUNY across the state were
absolutely.
apart from Arthur
You talk
Eve.
about legacy.
Yeah.
You look at Art Eve.
Yeah.
He has a legacy, especially you knew what he stands for. I mean, he'd always walk around with those little buttons for children.
Yeah.
That spoke volumes. I think Brian Higgins always says to me, and I love when he says, Rashid, one thing I really like about you is that you focus on the issue and you're not doing 50 different things. And that's something that we try
Absolutely.
to do because we want to accomplish something.
Absolutely.
But I always want to talk about one of my mentors, Butch Holt, who gave me my first job at Mere Summer Youth in NICYO and created something that was just something we talk about today, about the Randy Smith Classic, and gave young people jobs and opportunities. He was definitely somebody that I respected and appreciated.
Yeah. So it's been good to have a show. And I know we missed a lot of names, and we gave the opportunity on Facebook. Our phone system here, like the storm, we got a lot of damage. So our phone system got fried, and so we are on a temporary system, and now it's going to cost us about $20,000 to replace our towers because of all of the networks that True Bethel has with the computer system. But it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. But we couldn't take calls. Everything is kind of wacky right now. I want to go to finish the show about the storm because I want to talk about some of those suggestions that I've heard. And one of the suggestions that the sheriff talked about was the warming centers having a flashing light on them, because when people were out there, I hear the stories you could not see. So certain things I definitely do understand as we peel back these layers to understand what happened, what didn't happen. I like that suggestion of having that. I also think, and I know people were saying, where's the church? Churches are not equipped for it. But I think that if there are churches that would, like somebody made a suggestion, are there any grants where a church can get a generator in that way? But then as part of the grant, and I think we need to search for that, as part of the grant, be able to say we'll be a warming center in a storm. But remembering that takes personnel, that takes a coordinator. And one of the things that was suggested by one of our colleagues that was voted on unanimously by the council was an emergency management coordinator. And I am not against that at all.
I was going to say, and I'm not against it either. I'm actually, until it was kind of said, I was surprised we didn't have one. Every large city that I know has a division. When I worked at the Eagles, Stadium in Philly, that was who determined whether the stadium got evacuated in an emergency. It wasn't Eagle personnel. They worked for the city, but it was this OES.
Yeah.
And you would just see them randomly with jackets on. Fire alarm would go off, and they would be like, "Do not evacuate."
Wow.
Because they're also in communication with clearing
Right,
out
so
the
they
road,
know.
the 95, and
Got it.
everything else. So I do think something like that, and that's where I think if we are going to activate the larger facilities, I think that's where that team is getting that FEMA
Absolutely,
money.
because I would like to see a warming center, especially in storms, a place of shelter in every councilmatic district.
I agree.
So that if you're in Ellicott and centrally located in there, every church is not going to be, and folks just got to understand that. Just like every business can't be a warming center, that every church is not staffed like that. I tell people all the time, you know, you talk about the size of a True Bethel. We run True Bethel with a couple handfuls of people. There aren't thousands of volunteers that volunteer at True Bethel, like most churches in our area. People have jobs, so when you have a warming center, you got to have staff. You can't just open the door because I think Shep said it best. If something happens in that building, you're personally liable. But I think if you have a warming station in every district, that at least I can get there, and there's lights there, and there's a generator there, and even some of our already our city buildings, to ensure that they're, like they said, MREs. I've had them a couple times, which are ready meals. When I was in the military, we did eat. Now let me say this: I was in the Air Force, and it wasn't like we was eating them every day. We ate them in basic a couple times.
For training.
Yeah, taste this. But the peanut butter was pretty good in MRE. So having MREs and if we are able to coordinate, have someone who could coordinate that, I think it is a positive.
I think it's important to have an emergency manager. I mean, all the things that they would have to, because you have to get someone that's experienced.
Yes.
You just can't appoint somebody and say, oh, you don't need an emergency. No, you got to get somebody that's experienced, that know how to organize, have connections, understand the state system, the federal system, that really can do this in the right way. Because I think that, again, we talked about this. The storm happened 2 weeks ago. We had a storm about a month ago, and we really have to start learning from those things and start putting things in place and not just talking. A gentleman sent me an email, 8 pages, and I read it, and I'm like, man, it's a very, very good suggestions. Extremely good suggestions. I'm like,
and they're out there.
Yes.
They're out there. So utilize that. Utilize this information that's come, because we're getting the same thing. So I think it's in it to everybody. And that's, to me, now let's not just take that and go, oh, okay, and throw it in the corner. That's why I think I may sit a committee. And this, I want to be clear. And somebody said exactly, no point. You're not pointing fingers. Not to point a finger against one person. To say, as a community, how do we respond better? Would snowblowers, what you call snowmobiles work? Do we need some on? I personally, I think so, but I think working together to figure out what equipment do we need that can, especially, and I said it the other week, help with search and rescue.
Yes,
because people can deal with snow minus death,
right?
And if we can, eliminate or not have any death, eliminate deaths. I think people go like, okay, at least you saved. People. And there were people saved. Let me say this.
Oh, yeah.
And we've given that credit. There were people saved, definitely. But could we save more?
Yeah.
That's what I say. Could we save more?
And I want to shout out Commissioner Gramalia. He came to our oversight meeting, and he said, I'm not taking any criticisms from anybody. I accept it. I accept what people are saying, and I take it and say, can we do better? And I said, that's the attitude we got to have.
Yes.
People can criticize, but don't be so thin-skinned, because people lost life. How do we ensure that lives aren't lost in the future? And again, the police department has already started reviewing how they responded, and the big ups to him and how they.
Last quote of the day from Dr. Martin Luther King: life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Thank you, Hobson's the Doctor Dry Cleaning. Somebody just put up how disappointed they were that the windows were broken, and but they're still there. They're still there. 874 East Delavan. They're still there, weathering the storm, literally weathering the storm. And Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes, 3 locations to serve you. The list of the people they took care of is long this week. Sharifu family, Walker family, Parson family, Bobo family, Ware family, Shout out to Hurry family, the Tan family, among others. Don't forget this Sunday, Klein Hands Music Hall for the King's celebration, and it begins promptly at 6 p.m. Listen, folks, I'm going to throw it back over to the station. Until next week, power to the people.